Welcome back, everyone, to the Memory Jogger podcast with Jason and Wyatt. This is Jason, and he is Wyatt.
Yes, I am. Rah, rah, rah. Okay, I never passed as a cheerleader.
This is episode 5 of the podcast of attempting to jog our memories and run down a few childhood dreams from the 80s. And we also hope our conversation will stir up a few memories of your own. Well, Wyatt, the last time we discussed in our previous episode where we talked about our Christmas gifts, that we are here tonight to talk about our recordings and the first memories of that wonderful piece of technology known as the VCR.
That's right. And while we're here, before we get into too much information, we want to wish everybody a happy new year, 2017. So this is the first episode in 2017 for us. We're actually recording this on New Year's.
New Year's Day. That's correct.
So
yes, happy New Year to everybody, and we really thank you for following along and listening to us over the last couple months as we've begun this show. And just a quick reminder to you, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, just go into your favorite app like iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher and find the Rediscover the 80s podcast. You can also find us on the Throwback Network podcast feed and also at throwbacknetwork.net. And if you can also listen to our raw audio from our recording sessions and hear all of our screw-ups at the Rediscover the 80s YouTube channel. To interact with us, you can find our show notes at rediscoverthe80s.com, or if you can fit your reply in 140 characters, feel free to tweet us at RD80s. And before we get into our usual icebreaker, Wyatt, let's go over some listener feedback. Why don't we?
Sounds great.
We always hope to get some listener feedback as we begin these shows from our previous episodes and such. And last one we got into rather quickly there with this opportunity for the Christmas gifts, but I did not want to pass up Kirk Toyster's comment to us that was over on Facebook. And in reference to the Nickelodeon episode, he said, while I was too old for Nick's target audience when our cable system added it in 1980, I do remember that at some point they were showing music videos pre-MTV for a few hours every night. I'm pretty sure the first video I ever saw on there was either computer games from Mesex or Walking on the Moon by the Police. Not familiar with Mesex. I do know the Police quite well. But I don't remember Nickelodeon playing music videos. Do you?
No. It could have, but I don't remember music videos of any type, not on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that was it struck me kind of weird there, but they very well could have before the days of MTV, because MTV was, I believe, 1981 when they kicked that off, August 1st. And if he got Nickelodeon in the 1980, they very well could have played some, music videos. So interesting factoid there. We'll have to look that up and see if he's on the money with that one. There was a few comments over on the rediscoverthe80s.com site to our Christmas toys. Most of these were from our friends who collaborated with us in the in that blog and podcast topic there. First, Killer Kitsch. I watched the cartoons, but I was too old for the toys. Then a few years later, I started buying and selling retro toys. So I've had most of these and more in my collection. Car boot sales and flea markets in the late 80s and early 90s used to be a gold mine for action figures and collectibles. That was in reference to some of the action figures and such that we mentioned in our Christmas gifts. Paul over at Return to the 80s, he said, awesome list. I was too old for most of these toys. And instead of having the Texas Instruments TI-99-4A like you had, Wyatt, I had a Commodore 64 that I had gotten for my birthday. Closest comparison of the other toys that I had were from the 70s. I had the Star Trek playset. I had Kirk and Spock and McCoy action figures. Also had the $6 Million Man and Oscar too, as well as some of the original G.I. Joe action figures. Really enjoyed your podcast too. Great job. So thanks for that, Paul. And one more from, actually got a couple more from Dave. Okay, I'm officially jealous that you had the Cat Slayer playset. That is very cool and awesome toy. Sorry you don't have that anymore. I understand still having the Voltron, as I have my Darth Vader collector case and figures from Empire Strikes Back.
Wow.
I had that Optimus Prime along with the Megatron gun. Good memory jog down the 1980s road. You guys are great. Awesome blog and podcast entries into our hashtag 80s Christmas crossover event. Thank you for that, Dave. It indeed was a fun topic, and we hope to be doing another one here again soon. And then Gil Jacob, lovely post, and thanks for the mention. So happy you still managed to keep some of your goodies from back then. And we appreciate that comment as well. I'm glad not all of them got taken away.
Right.
But let's go on to our icebreaker, and you actually plug this one in here. I saw this on the news. Was it yesterday?
Yes, it was. So
and,
just before the end of the year, we say goodbye to one of a TV legend. If you've watched MASH, that's the best place that you've known him. It's William Christopher, who played Father Francis Mulcahy on MASH.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've lost a lot of legends there in 2016. I was kind of wanting to jog your memory. Who was the one that kind of impacted you more?
Well, there's so many this year.
Yeah.
Early this year it was David Bowie, Prince, of course, Glenn Frey from the Eagles, a lot of musicians,
mm-hmm.
And then of course George Michael on Christmas Day. I don't know, man. I didn't really have a lot of albums of really any of those artists. I mean, I know all of their popular hits that would have been played on the radio and such, but didn't really go dig deep into any of their discographies myself. I guess maybe the one that hit the most was Carrie Fisher. It was just this past week. And of course, she being Princess Leia in the Star Wars films, also in a couple other movies that I really enjoyed and have watched a lot of from the 80s. She had a fun little part in the Blues Brothers, mm-hmm. where she was this mystery woman going after Jake and blowing up some stuff in the movie, trying to kill him. And then another one of my favorite roles of her outside of Star Wars, of course, is in The Burbs, where she played Tom Hanks' wife. And she was essentially the voice of reason throughout that movie, and trying to coax Tom Hanks' character that, all this was just crazy and what they were doing and trying to spy was ridiculous. And she was, pulling him to that end of the spectrum while, his neighbor buddies were pulling him the other direction, that these guys were, sinister and all that. Really enjoyed her role in that movie. And I don't know, it was just, and then of course her mother was a couple of days later that passed away.
The next day, I think.
Was it the next day? Yeah. So that was really sad. And, especially around the holidays, it was kind of tough to swallow.
Right.
But was there anyone that I guess you were closer to than the others?
Well, I was actually kind of heartbroken with the passing of William Christopher. I really got into the MASH series, not more
Mm-hmm.
so in the last, I would say, the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
It started out as not just flipping through channels, but I wanted to actually watch the series, and I got into the DVD craze and started watching it, and I really liked the character that he portrayed, and I realized he just portrayed a character, uh, but how he did it with the, um, I swear he had to alter his voice just because of it. I don't think it was really his
Mm-hmm.
voice, full voice rather, but he I guess he had that priestly voice, and he tried to make jokes, and he was always lousy at it. Um, but he had, the heart there to serve and so forth. So I kind of liked that character of his. So that I mean, it was kind of a hit. I knew he was up there
Mm-hmm.
in age. I just, you don't
Yeah.
see him. You hadn't heard from him. I'm sure he's played in several things, and I can look it up. But I hadn't seen him play in anything really that I can remember since
Mm-hmm.
MASH. I know that he was a Family Guy. Uh, I found it interesting reading his bio. Oh, when was it? It's been several years ago, but he played a Catholic priest when
Mm-hmm.
in reality he was a Methodist. Not that it's a big deal, but uh, it is kind of an odd disparity when it comes to
Oh yeah.
you know the type of faith there. So I thought it was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. He had to learn a whole different belief, if you will, and he had
Sure.
to play that out. Um, I punched it up. It looks like he most recently was um, Days of Our Lives in 2012. He played Father
Hmm.
Tobias. So he played a priest there. He played on, of all things, he played on Team Knight Rider, that short-lived
Oh really?
series. Yes, I've yet to watch that version of it. I know of it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anywhere to watch it. I know the introduction was on YouTube for a while, but I don't think
Yeah,
any episodes were.
yeah.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
I never really got into MASH. I remember as a kid, the woman across the street from me who babysat me like in the afternoons before my parents got home from work. She loved it. I remember watching that all the time over there while I was, playing or whatever. It was just kind of on in the background. But yeah, that's one show I've never really gone through. I've seen episodes here and there, but not
it
anything.
it had its moments. There were a few funny spots, but the best way to put it was very lighthearted. Um,
You're right.
it wasn't
Considering the setting, right?
right. It wasn't like a knee slapper by any means. Um, there were moments, but the whole thing was just, like I said, it was real lighthearted. They did touch on some difficult topics. I don't know why or what the reasoning was behind it, but uh, it was. I mean, it's to me it was turned into good background music. Yeah, music. Noise, I guess, when I was doing things, odd jobs around the house. I
Mhm.
could kind of let it fill the room, if you will.
Gotcha.
Um, you not have to really follow it. But yeah,
Okay.
and then I came across in this whole scenario, there were. Have you seen on Facebook? And I kind of look at it as a joke, really. But there was a Save Betty White from 2016. Like,
Yes, I did see that story go across my news feed, and there, who was it? I can't remember who it was that was like, we need to get Betty White and Stanley and Adam West in a bomb shelter for the rest of the year, just to save them from passing away in 2016. But
yeah,
it's different because like you said, William Christopher, he was up in age, and for those of us who grew up in the 80s and that kind of era, it's those actors, pop culture icons, I'll say, that seem to hit home, I guess, more with us this year, in that, some of these were only in their 50s and early 60s that passed away. And, that's still young, whereas, some of these actors from the shows and so forth are a little bit older, so you would expect, seeing, died in their 80s or even 90s. But yeah, there was just a lot that were unexpected. Well, I guess dying really isn't expected anyway,
Right.
but just the age of a lot of these this year was really surprising. And, thinking about the music industry and Prince and David Bowie, George Michael, even Glenn Frey to a certain extent being part of the Eagles. I mean, those four artists right there have sold, hundreds of millions of records worldwide. If you go into Wikipedia, I was looking through their, the all-time selling list, who has sold the most albums all time, and all four of those were in the top 100 at least,
Wow.
if not more. So that's a huge hit. And you think about Prince and David Bowie, even George Michael to a certain extent. David Bowie had just released an album right before his death, and Prince had a few new ones here and there, but none of them had really charted and hit pop music the way they had earlier in their careers.
Right.
So it wasn't it wasn't as impactful. But wow, just that day when Prince died, and there was several stations here in town just went straight Prince for the rest of the day as a tribute. And that was pretty crazy, just to listen to all those songs and think he's not around anymore.
Right.
I think the music industry overall was hit the worst out of all those people that died this year. And that's nothing to, not taking anything away from Hollywood and TV and movies. We lost Mrs. Brady as well, and Jason Seaver, Alan Thicke. I mean, there was a lot of icons from those industries as well. But to the extent of, how many records these guys sold, it just seemed to me the music industry was hit the worst. But
right.
Anyway, well, let's go on to something a little happier here.
Yes.
You noticed the commercial recently. I have not seen this one yet. Tell me about it.
Well, actually, I bypassed it because it came up in my Facebook feed about 2 or 3 days ago, and I saw the DeLorean, and I didn't think anything of it. I get ads all the time, so I usually ignored them. And then I think it was yesterday, we were, it was like 8, 9 o'clock, but we're watching the, ABC's Dick Clark New Year's Eve bash,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden here's a spot, and it's AT&T, and I'm not paying it. I saw Rocky. I didn't think anything of it, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing I see is here's Kit and Michael pulling up. And then you see the Uber or taxi, whatever the guy jumps into, literally like scales over and turns into the DeLorean. It turns into hover mode and blasts off. And as it's passing by, you see Stay Puft walking between the buildings. So I actually had to punch it up on YouTube to see the full 1 minute spot. And it's mostly 80s. So someone in production knows how to at least get my attention. But you got Rocky starting out, and then it segues into the Golden Girls theme being basically midied on, and then it goes into the current stuff. So you see Game of Thrones. They touch on. Oh, there's another.
So what is the commercial like pitching?
It's pitching. you can get 18. You can get your Netflix and your shows basically DVR'd anywhere, and it's
Wow.
not charging you your data rate anymore. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
if as
Okay.
long as you're somehow DVR'd, I guess in the ATT system, they won't charge you they won't ding your 2 gig package or
I
whatever
gotcha.
package you have.
I
So
gotcha.
it's really
Okay.
cool. But they sold me because I'm just seeing everybody left and right. They had Seinfeld. They had um, some other theme I caught, and I couldn't remember what it was. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I usually don't promote many commercials, but especially if Kit's in there, you gotta go see it. Just at least for Kit. But it was actually pretty cool to see. It was the
Yeah.
Ghostbusters theme. That's what I heard. As
Gotcha.
you see Stay Puft stomping through. It's pretty a sweet commercial.
I'll have to check it out, or I'm sure I'll see it if it's one they're going to be, showing on a regular basis. But
We had
there's,
I saw a shortened one today,
uh
and
huh.
they did. It must have been their 30-second spot because it clipped out quite a bit of the. I didn't see Kit, so I was a little pissed.
Well, there's some companies that have kind of tapped into that, market, the '80s market, that I've noticed over this, past couple years. And I'm gonna go check this one out. It should be fun. So, if you don't have anything else as far as news goes or an icebreaker, what do you say we dive in?
Let's go for it. Let's talk about our recordings on VCR or VHS memories.
Right.
What was
So,
your maybe uh,
yeah.
first interaction with a VCR? Or, can you remember?
I
I'm trying to think of myself as I asked the question.
Well, there's a couple things that kind of stick out in my mind uh, about VCRs, and I remember it. I'm pretty sure it was a birthday party early on, maybe around 7, 8, 9 years old. So, around mid 80s, that my parents rented a VCR from the local store, rental store. And we rented Star Wars. I know that for a fact. That was the very first time I ever saw Star Wars. Um, so that was, pretty much after everything had come out, in the theater. I wasn't, I didn't watch any of the original Star Wars trilogy in the movie theater. And it never really got into collecting the figures, even though they were huge at the time. But it wasn't until that birthday party, maybe around, like I said, 83, 84, 85, somewhere in there, I would say, that we, mom, dad went down, rented the VCR. It was one of the top loaders.
Oh yeah.
We've been watching the Goldbergs, so finally catching up on that show. And the intro to that shows the big top loader that they, kind of first came up with. And we did that for a while. We would rent the machine, and it was usually for a special occasion, like a birthday, or if I was doing a sleepover or family in town or something. On a special occasion, we would get it, and we'd rent the machine and a couple of movies. And do you remember the store at the Point, coming out of Kerwinsville, under the bridge, and right there, that
Oh
building?
yes. It's now
Uh,
gone, but yes.
yeah. Well, for the longest time, it was like a cigarette
Yes.
outlet store. But that's the store. That's where I remember renting that machine from. And a couple other movies I remember renting there. Harry and the Hendersons. I remember that was one of the movies that we got. The Dirt Bike Kid. I don't know if you remember that movie or not. I think
I
that was
I
80s, probably around that same time as Harry and the Hendersons. We might have doubled that one up.
I don't remember watching it, but I've heard of it.
That starred Ralphie from the Christmas Story, and he had this like magical dirt bike. I can't remember, but I think it could fly and stuff, or he could do tricks. It's been probably since then since I watched it. But for some reason, it sticks out in my mind. I rented it from that store, and then yeah, I mean that was our rental store in Kerwinsville while we lived there. And I don't think we ever got a VCR until after I moved to Clearfield. So that would have been early 90s. So we weren't early adapters in technology by any means in our house. So that was kind of my first memories of interacting with the VCR. What about you? You said you got one for Christmas, right?
We got one for Christmas, and I'm trying to think of the time frame. It had to have been shortly after the divorce, basically as a babysitter for us. So it had to have been around the, I would say 86, 87 time frame. But my first introduction, I really want to say, was from Leaf.
Okay.
And I remember watching, I don't know how I remember this, but I remember watching E.T. and his VCR was a top loader.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember much. There's not much details. I just remember that that we watched E.T. and I was at his house there.
I think I remember watching a couple of the WrestleManias at his house, and I don't know if those were tapes or he was huge into wrestling,
Oh yes,
and we never got the pay-per-views or anything like that. I don't think he had pay-per-views, so I'm
he
guessing it might
probably
have been
bought.
a rental,
It could have been a rental, or he bought the
or they bought the actual tape.
WrestleManias or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Cool. Okay.
I do remember renting one at some point. My mom rented it maybe once or twice, and that's how we turned into getting one, um, because we could then move it whenever we went to my grandparents to visit or
Mm-hmm.
something. We could just
Mm-hmm.
grab it and attach it there. So yeah,
Cool. Well, I know. Sounds like our experiences are a little different from many who might have got them earlier on, and you start recording things off of TV. And I was trying to remember, like when I could realize you could, like record stuff off TV and how cool that was. Uh, and it, like I said, it was probably in the later part of the '80s, and then me begging my parents, mainly probably my mother at that time, to get one so we could tape some stuff off of TV. And I remember at some point you bringing a VCR over to our house, so we had two, so we could like take a tape from yours and make a dub basically of that. I think it was mainly the Three Stooges.
probably.
At some point, and there was one point where I was essentially doing like video editing because I had recorded a Lakers game. I remember this pretty vividly. It would have been probably around the '92 era, and this was after Magic Johnson had left, and our team was kind of rebuilding. Some of the other players from the Showtime era had retired, and there was a point guard. His name was Nick Van Exel, played for the Lakers, and there was one game where he hit like something like 8 or 9 3-pointers in the same game. And I remember I taped that game, and I was using the other VCR to just pull out like all of his shots that he made and make this like little highlight almost. It was weird. I don't know why I have that stuck in my head, but anyway, I guess let's get into what some of our early memories of taping stuff and what we were taping. And do you still have any of those tapes?
Well, I do have quite a few of them. I did a purge here. Oh, it's been probably about 13, 14 years now. I was still in New Jersey. I
Mm-hmm.
did a purge basically because I had them on DVD, and I finally got rid of them. I didn't think I needed them on tape anymore. Um, one of my first tape, I still actually have. I don't know why. I guess I'm sentimental. And what was on it was supposed to be. I remember the reason why. Um, the They were re-airing Airwolf, so I was
Uh-huh.
trying to record the pilot of Airwolf because I had never actually seen the pilot, and they were finally doing reruns. I don't know where. So I
You
remember
talking
trying to
about the
record it.
movie?
Uh, yes, the 2 hour or two episode movie, um, and then I recorded over it um, because I didn't get it recorded successfully or something. I ended up recording. It's the name. I can see it, and I had to look it up for the title just so I knew what it was. But the episode was called "A Short Walk to Freedom," and it's basically where Airwolf um, they go over. There's exchange students, or there's I'm sorry, uh, kids on an excavation. They go into this dig over in some other country, and of course they're trespassers, and they get jailed. So Airwolf has to save the day. It gets shot down. Um, But anyway, I have that episode on there. I have the brand new when it actually aired, the season 4 episode 1 premiere where we actually get Sinjin Hawk now instead of
Yeah, where they
Strange.
changed the team.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had that on there, as well as there is a commercial still on there to this day for Gillette Foamy, and they use the Stooges as the commercial. And I still remember the something like I can't remember which episode it was. It's a mix of two Stooge episodes.
Uh-huh.
Mo kicks Mo kicks Curly in the chin for something, and then the next thing you know is you see Curly getting smacked with a pie outside on a telephone pole. But anyway, it says like, "Try new Gillette Foamy for sensitive skin." Uh, but then,
It's funny, like you don't think to keep the tapes since you converted them over to DVDs, but I know there's at least several, I would say half a dozen YouTube channels that are just like old commercials that I
yeah,
subscribe to and post all kinds of 80s, 90s, even earlier TV commercials. I would assume from something that they recorded from, and those are kind of the hidden gems now,
yes,
that are just you know back in the day. I remember sitting and trying to stop the tape when you're watching something live to stop so you don't record the commercials, and you start it back again
right.
to kind of cut them out, while you're recording it if you're sitting there. And now those are kind of the most sought after
They are.
recordings.
Because you think about those, like you especially doing articles. Now you want to be able to have something to do the articles with instead of just literally
Right.
like us jogging our memory trying to figure out, okay, what did they do? Like for me, wanted to rewatch the old Ram commercials. If you remember them, where they dropped it out of the ceiling type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's built Ram tough, and they dropped the truck onto the floor, that kind of thing, just for fun. I want to see them, and I've yet to actually, look them up. Um, but yeah, that would be
Interesting.
kind of sweet. I'd like to go through my VHS collection and see what commercials
Yeah.
I do have that are actually clean enough to maybe put
Well,
on there
yeah.
because
I mean,
we switched to Ariel at some point, and there's several episodes. I have a list of what I have, and I don't know how I could ever view them now, just from all the
yeah,
static.
yeah,
So
yeah. That's the unfortunate thing. Those VHS tapes were were good, but you always had to mess with the tracking too, and
Yeah.
until they, came up with auto tracking and all that stuff. Some of those are pretty bad if you look on YouTube. It's nice to if you can make it out and understand, what's going on, but it's rough too at the same time.
Right.
Some of those. Well, let me. I guess let's go back and forth. We'll talk
Okay.
about some things because I do have some of mine. I found some that I remember I used to have that I don't have anymore. And I guess since I talked about the basketball thing, I'll throw out there one of my most coveted recordings as a Lakers fan was the 1992 NBA All-Star Game, which was, well, up until that point, my favorite player was Magic Johnson. And up to that point, before he retired, that was his last game. They let him come back and play in the All-Star Game. And at the very end of the game, he hits the last shot. It's a fallback three-pointer that I mimicked on every playground I probably ever played on. That shot that he makes at the end of that game in the All-Star game I think it was over Isaiah Thomas. So I had that on, and I watched that many, many, many times up until the point he came back for a few games. And I think it was 1996. But that was when I was at college. So, that was kind of like my recording. And then on the same tape was a couple of alumni games that I participated in right after I graduated school. So it had been like 95 and probably the 95 and 96. We would have the current varsity team play an alumni team. And there was a couple games there where in the alumni games, since it's just for fun and you go out there and you're trying to show off for everybody and give them a good game to watch, that was where you're doing behind the back passes and just crazy shots, shooting it up from everywhere. And I remember I have the tape, so I have the All-Star game, and then after that are a couple of basketball games that I was in right after I graduated. So that was one of my most coveted tapes that I had, and I think I got those alumni games from when I had 2 VCRs at some point, and I popped in the actual tape recorded from the games, and then recorded on the end of that tape after the All-Star game. So that was probably one of my most coveted tapes. What else you got?
I got a whole slew that I still have. I probably should finally just purge them, but I could go all day long, but I'll try to highlight a few.
I guess I was going to say, let's maybe let's talk about some of the movies. Maybe we can split it up that way.
Okay.
What movies did we record? What TV shows? That sort of a thing.
Well, I was one that used the most out of the VCR, or rather the VCR tape. So, I would try to get the the BASFs that had the 8 hours instead of the 6 hour.
Yes. 8 hours.
Yeah, I'd try to milk that as much as I could. So, I came across one. It's the Robotech movies 1 through 3.
Oh wow!
Yep.
Cool.
I've only watched them probably once or twice in my lifetime. They were cool, but I never got into them.
Just came on the streaming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they were on Amazon for a while. They might be on Netflix now, but they're out there.
Nice. Then right after that is a few episodes of the Little Rascals, the original black and white. And
oh, nice.
Then there's a couple Donald Duck cartoons. I liked Donald Duck growing up. I think one of the episodes is something about him riveting, and I used to got a chuckle because the way he would say rivet, and his voice, and it was just you could never, like, are you riveting? Are you riveted? I can't remember the exact. I used to get
Yeah.
bust out with that. Um, Another one that has a movie on it, I still have it, is Ghostbusters 2.
Nice.
And there's a few hodgepodge stuff in between it. There's, I think, an episode or two with Three Stooges. Then it's
Hmm.
Ghostbusters 2. And then I think there's a Knight Rider. I think there's this old, I don't know why I got into it, but it was called Kid Songs.
Hmm.
They're just little mini music videos, but with kids singing the same, the modern day pop.
Gotcha.
Trying to think what other movies there was. I have Pee Wee's Big Adventure as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And on that same tape, I have Alice in Wonderland, but it's the CBS miniseries version where it
Oh.
was like live action. And it had dang it, what's his name? There was a lot of famous actors in it.
Hmm.
Um, he's part of the Rat Pack. Oh man,
Oh, you talking about like the old Rat Pack,
yeah, the old Rat Pack.
like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and all them?
Yeah. Um, Geez, it's the black guy. Oh crap!
Oh, Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr. He's in there, and I remember him smoking that like 3 mile long cigarette stick on that, or maybe it's a yucca. I don't know what they are. Um,
Cool.
that's really all it is for movies. Once I bought the movie, I typically regained that cassette and
Hmm.
used it for something else. To the point that I would, you pull that. You remember pulling the tab out so you could
Sure. Yep.
save it. So when I bought whatever it was, if I bought Ghostbusters, for instance, I would put a piece of Scotch tape over it so I could reuse that tape.
Right. Right. That's funny.
How about you? What movies did you seem to record?
Movies. I recorded a lot of James Bond.
Why am I not
I
surprised?
have a. I still have two tapes full of James Bond movies. I haven't watched them to see if they were. I usually recorded something when it was on like a marathon.
Yeah.
So, uh, James Bond marathons have been going on forever. So I know that was probably, from something like that. And then also I had a tape of at least three, maybe four of the Planet of the Apes movies. And I remember this because I think it was the USA Network that, or maybe it was TBS. It was one of those that did Christmas with the Apes. And all Christmas Day, they ran the Apes movies. And I started from the beginning. I just hit record on the thing. And I don't know how many movies it got on there. I still have that tape. I need to get that out. And again, like, I don't know. I'm like interested in watching the commercials more than the actual films,
I was pretty
to
good
see what was
unless
recorded in there.
I put it on a timer. I was pretty good about editing them out, so I'm
Yeah.
sure I don't have very many.
Well, and I think that tape, I was probably, at home on Christmas Day killing time or something. And when I could, I was, editing out the commercials. But I do know I have that. I've got a tape that has, this is really the only hodgepodge tape I have. I've got some Saturday Night Live episodes, which would have been, I'm guessing this would have been early 90s. And then I don't know if it was right after the SNL, but there's also a Sting concert.
Hmm.
And then after that, I recorded Problem Child 1 and 2. So I found that tape. I'm trying to think what other movies I recorded. I've got a few TV shows
I had several of
we
those.
can talk about. So I guess let's go on to TV. What TV shows did you fill up or like to record?
Well, I thought I had a lot more than I have. I'm sure I do if I sat here for a couple months and watched them. I had a lot of Knight Rider and Dukes, uh, Stooges. As people know by now, I had a big hankering for Stacey Keenan, so I had some episodes of Step by Step and My Two Dads. Um, when Viper came out, I recorded every single episode. The unfortunate part was it was recorded off of antenna, so some of the episodes weren't all that great. I mean, I could make them out,
Mm-hmm.
but if I were to see it now on a good, even a good DVD, I think I'd be just shocked at what I missed. Because the
You
car
might,
transformed, so you didn't see a lot of the graphics
yeah.
as well, at least.
Well, there's some of those shows that have not been converted over to DVD yet,
Hmm.
and you can find some of them on YouTube. That would be one that I would guess either might not be on YouTube to watch, or I'm pretty sure it has not been
It was on YouTube for a while. Viper was on there for a
converted.
while,
Mm-hmm.
and I was watching it. The problem with it is because I'm working for the government up on their system, and there was a few racy scenes. I was wondering if I was going to get shanghaied or kicked out of the Air Force for. So
Really, I don't remember that. I
I didn't
remember the
realize
show, but I don't remember it being.
it was in the in betweens. They had.
Uh-huh.
I watched when it first came out, which was season one, so it had original cast. It wasn't very many, and then it basically got pulled off air. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think there was, I don't think it was a full season, like a full year, but there was a good distance between filming of season one and season two. When they did
Mm.
season two, they started with a whole new cast except for one. I don't know how this guy lucked out. He stayed with the whole four series, and he's like the mechanic. He's not even
Mm-hmm.
the original
Not even one of
driver.
the main characters.
Yeah. So anyway, he stayed, and then
Interesting.
season four, they brought back the original driver from season one and the guy that invented the car just to basically resell what it was purpose was in the first place.
Was that USA Network?
Mm,
I thought it was.
on the seasons 2, 3, and 4, yes, because that's how they syndicated it. Season one was NBC,
Oh,
but
okay.
it cost so much. I mean, this is when the Viper came out, 92, 93. So they think of the computer graphics that had to transform this car, and then
Mm-hmm.
the stunt of those cars, because the car supposedly turned into a bulletproof vehicle that had guns popping out the side like Airwolf. Then they had a four-wheel drive mode which jacked the car up. I later found out there was a Dodge Dakota underneath, but they jacked it up.
Mm-hmm.
But all the transformations, the CGI is what killed the budget, and I guess that's
No.
what killed it
Yeah.
after season one. So then when they redid it, they really shortened up. If you watch it, you'll see. Just Google season one and then transformation, then season two. It's more blocky type transformations after that.
Gotcha.
But anyway, that was a tangent.
Yeah. What other TV shows did you
I
record?
had In Living Color. I loved watching that. I loved old Fire Marshal Bill.
Yes. Now I remember being over at your house many times and watching that. I would
Heck yeah,
assume probably from your tapes.
most likely.
Yeah.
I recorded one episode of Highwayman. If you remember that
I remember
episode, that
that.
show.
Yes.
Um, I have a
That was short lived. I don't
very
think that's been converted over to DVD either.
no, but Viper I think did, because I was on. There's some. Oh, it's not. I think it's I don't think Shout Factory, but it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on their email list to say if something had popped up to alert me, and I remember them saying the Viper was now
Viper's
available, but
coming.
I never looked at the cost or who had it.
Hmm.
Um, But anyway, I have Simpsons. I have a few episodes of Beavis and Butthead. I have an MTV Music Awards. I have to. I didn't mark this.
Nice.
I don't have this marked, so it pisses me off because this is the one I talked about where you see they're all getting ready to, intro him, and they says, "Here's a guy that needs no introduction," and they don't even say him, and then he walks on, and it's Pee Wee Herman. This is
Pee-wee,
after.
yes.
This is after he had been in jail for
Right.
for that.
That
Whatever he
was his
did at the
big
porno
comeback.
house. Yeah, so that was his comeback. I swear he got busted out of jail because I don't think he was served his full sentence. So
I'm gonna have to look that up.
but anyway, that's the episode I still have.
1991
I have.
happened.
Yeah, I have. I said Knight Rider. A couple other Airwolf episodes. I don't remember which ones. Married with Children. Loved Married with Children. And there was one other one that I got into. It's kind of like kids songs, but it was a little bit better, called The Next Generation. And it was just basically the next generation. They were trying to sell themselves as like the next generation of pop singers, and all it turned out to be was a TV show. And
I don't remember that.
And Voltron 3D when it came out.
Okay.
I recorded that. Of course, I recorded Dukes, the old '66 Batman series. I have a Looney Tunes tape. I think I actually might have two of them. Yeah, I think that's really about it. I was surprised. I don't have a lot of, as much as an 80s person I was, I didn't record like 18 or MacGyver. Of course, I was late in the game with MacGyver and all those guys. I just didn't get into it. But it's, I'm going to go off on a bunny trail. This saved me in a way because if you remember, I got orders to go to Korea for a year. And this was in 2000, summer of 2000. And I didn't know what they would have over there. I didn't know what their TV would be like. So unbeknownst to what I was doing, TNN had brought back the Dukes. And this is original TNN, the Nashville network, before they changed to CMT.
Yes, I remember.
I think actually Spike TV bought them, but whatever. So I had, this is the ones I purged, unfortunately, but I think I had about 10, maybe more VCR tapes of just the Dukes because they had just resurfaced and I didn't know if they'd die off again. So I'm like, that poor VCR went miles on that because I just set the timer up and it was always recording. So I boxed that, my Stooges, a few like the Viper, my Airwolf episodes, a few Knight Rider, and I just boxed them all up and had they shipped like up to 500 pounds of stuff. I thought I was going to break the scales with just my VCR tapes, and I shipped it, my VCR, and I had just bought a computer and I put a Win TV card in it, installed it, so that I could use the computer as my TV basically my all-in-one entertainment center. And I don't know how that worked out so beautifully. My roommate, who's a good friend of mine still, he had his family ship A-Team, some MacGyver,
Nice,
and some other.
Y'all were living the high life.
Oh, we were. It was hilarious because we get in there and just binge watch over the weekend, or
the original binge watching.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Cool.
So how about you? What did you put all together in your collection?
Yeah, I had a couple of the same ones as you, and like I said, I think I dubbed your Stooges.
Probably.
You have one of my own because I remember watching that a lot. I had at least one, maybe two tapes like you of Looney Tunes cartoons. And it's weird because, we think of, 80s cartoons we would want to record, but we pretty much had access to Transformers and GI Joe.
Yeah.
Throughout the week, weekdays.
It seemed to be those Saturday morning cartoons we recorded. Like Looney Tunes was ABC, and you had the corny "After these messages, we'll be right back."
Yes.
That stupid thing where the clay figures would do that stuff,
Yeah. So we had Saturday morning. So I don't know. It was weird that I chose to record Looney Tunes, and then I can specifically remember one summer when I was home from school, probably around that same era, 91, 92, 93. I filled up an 8-hour tape or 6-hour tape of the Pink Panther. Huge Pink Panther fan, and they played that on TNT. I specifically remember this too. It was on the TNT network. I don't know if it was a half hour or hour each morning. I think it was morning, or maybe it was early afternoon, that they played the Pink Panther. And I loved the Pink Panther, still do, and have kind of passed that along to my kids, mainly my youngest right now. She loves Pink Panther. We actually just found the Pink Panther and Pink Panther and Pals that was on the Cartoon Network just a few years ago. They got all those episodes and the classic episodes on YouTube.
Nice.
We've been binging those. Anyway, but that was another one of my most treasured tapes, was that full Pink Panther tape. TV shows, it would have been probably 93, 94. I was huge into Walker, Texas Ranger. If you remember that show, Chuck Norris, kicking some butt, pulling out the karate moves at the end of each episode, taking out the bad guys. I filled up 2 tapes full of Walker, Texas Ranger. Still have those. Trying to think what other TV. I mentioned SNL. I did have a tape of some Nick at Night recordings, mainly Get Smart. I remember having several episodes of Get Smart.
Well,
that I recorded.
I remember being at your dad's, and I remember 2 specific recordings, probably different times, but I remember 2 specific recordings that you had, and that's how I got introduced to him. And that was Night Court was one, and some of the Johnny Carson.
Oh yes. Now
them.
Yeah. Now that would have been. Yeah, that would have been around that era when they first released. It was. I don't know if it was right at the time that Johnny retired, because I think he retired in 92. And the lady that was staying with my dad, she had purchased the Johnny Carson collection, and it was divvied out into decades. I think it was like the best of the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And yeah, I remember watching that a lot. Trying to remember Night Court. I don't remember if that was something that maybe she recorded.
Oh, it could have been. I just remember watching it because I remember
watching Night Court.
Well, the one episode I specifically remember is that turtle, where the dude has some turtle syndrome, and it takes him forever to get in the courtroom and to talk. That is burned in my memory because that's still a riot, and I feel bad because I think it's season 1, maybe season 2. I have.
Oh man,
and it's not on there, and I've been looking for it.
I so need to revisit that. Is it that Laugh TV that we get over the air that has episodes they're airing now? Between that and Antenna TV, man, I watch a lot of that too at late night if I'm up and nothing else is on, or we're not binging anything. But yeah, I seem to remember now. Maybe some American Gladiators we taped when Dad lived over there. When he moved over there, I don't know. That just kind of came to mind. Anyway, I think it's about it for TV. and pretty much all that I have here. Do you have some maybe like, because we're pretty much past the obviously VCR era, but I was still recording up through like early 2000s. And do you remember like maybe what some of your last things you recorded on VHS?
Well, the last thing I do remember recording was Voltron 3D. That was the last thing I recorded, and that was I was still in Illinois. I think it was right after right before I left for Korea. So it's either Voltron 3D and or the Dukes because of it being on TNN. Those are the last things I do remember recording, and it was after that. It was everything else was, DVDs seemed to be hitting the market like a firestorm. So I was buying up everything. I have, when the Dukes came out, I originally recorded their made-for-TV movies, the Dukes Reunion, and then the Dukes in Hollywood. I recorded those originally on VHS. I think I still have them. And then, well, like the sucker that I am, I would call up Columbia House and buy their VHS, so I didn't have to worry about the commercials. And then
buggers.
And then they came out.
They got everybody.
Oh yeah. And then when they came out with the DVDs, well, naturally, I just had to have it. So I bought all 7 seasons, not all at one time. And obviously I had to pick up the 2 movies that came with it. So that's why I purged my Dukes. Like I said, I probably tossed out 10, maybe a dozen or so VHS tapes because of that. And the same with the Stooges. I started really collecting the Stooges on DVD and all the eras. And I'm like, man, I got more on these DVDs, more episodes than I did on the old VHS. So I ended up ditching those after holding on to them for so long. I still remember to this day because I loved the Stooges so much in high school. Do you remember me listening, or maybe us listening to it in the car? Because I took the one, I think it was the 8-hour tape, or maybe it was the 6-hour. I had 2 big ones.
Oh wow!
And anyway, what I did
put it on a cassette.
I put it on like 2 or 3 audio cassettes. But I knew pretty much just about everything that was going on. So I'm literally listening just to the audio of the whole, episodes.
That's some dedication right there.
It was, because I was listening to it to and from school, and I knew every little eye poke and slap from Mo or whatever was going on. My poor sister, she had no clue what was going on. I'm sitting there laughing down the highway, and she was just like, "Oh, just get me to school. I don't care." I still remember one episode driving that TV. Do you remember that portable 5-inch black and white TV I had? I remember I'm like, you know what? I want to listen to Married with Children. And I tried it. So I turned just so I wouldn't get caught by a cop or something. I pointed the TV at the passenger door. Well, it sat in the passenger seat. And I just plugged it in the cigarette lighter because it had a 12-volt, accessory. And I aimed the antenna, which I knew would probably be mobile anyway, but I aimed it. Was able to tune into Fox at the time, WWCP, and I was going to the gas station. I think I was going to work, and I listened to. I got almost to like Kerwinsville. I'm living at my mom's at the time, so I'm getting almost to Kerwinsville before it fades off. I'm like, man, I was just getting to the good part, but I didn't even see what was going on. Anyway, I have no idea what Al was talking about. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, just things you remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's called Memory Jogger.
True. Very true.
What about you? What was the last maybe few things that you might have stopped recording?
Well, I was up until the early 2000s. I was big into NASCAR, and it was one of those things that my dad and I bonded over because my dad hated sports. He hated football, baseball, basketball. Of course, I loved them all and played them all at some point throughout my childhood, you know. And he would come to my games and support me and stuff. But to sit down and watch a Steelers game to him was like, you know, pulling out toenails. He just wouldn't have anything of it. But he's a huge car buff. So the one thing that we really were able to bond over was the NASCAR race every Sunday. So, you know, we would watch races, and he was a Darrell Waltrip fan, and I was a Dale Earnhardt fan. And I was able to kind of, you know, keep that going through college in the late 90s. And it was something we would talk, you know, about when we were on the phone and such, catching up. And then 2001 was when that fatal crash happened at Daytona.
Yeah.
And Dale Earnhardt was killed. And I took it pretty hard, I must say, because I had followed him, you know, since I was a kid. In the, you know, mid to late 80s probably is when my dad really got me into NASCAR. And, you know, he was winning championships, and he's still, you know, the most decorated champion, or maybe tied for the, you know, the most championships won. I think he has 7 in NASCAR history. So when he died in 2001, you know, it hit me pretty hard. And my wife taped his funeral on, I guess it was on ESPN, would have been. And I have that tape still of Dale Earnhardt's funeral. It's funny because she had some of her tapes in there, and she has Princess Di's funeral on tape, which was, when was that? That was probably late 90s, like maybe 96 or 97, I want to say. When she died.
Yeah, it's around that time frame.
So it's kind of, I don't know, it might be kind of morbid that we've got funerals on tape. But yeah, she taped that for me so I could watch it. I don't know if I've ever gone back. I don't remember ever, you know, going back and watching it since then, but I found it in my box of tapes out there. And then probably the last show that I really set a point to taping each week, and it was usually taping as we watched it because, oh my gosh, we just loved the show. And that was Whose Line Is It Anyway, with Drew Carey, and, you know, when they brought that over from England and started showing it here, I had some of the same people. I've gone back and I didn't watch it, you know, the English version before it hit America, but this was like, I think right after we got married. So 2000, 2001, we filled up I found 3 VHS tapes full of Whose Line Is It Anyway episodes.
Oh, nice.
And, oh my gosh, we would laugh so hard. It was such a great show. Still is a great show. And they tried to bring it back. It must have been maybe just last year, I think, on CW or WB Network, one of those two. Some of those guys are looking pretty rough compared to what they, you know, looked like 15 years ago. But
right.
It's just so much fun, you know, all improvisation, and, you know, Wayne Brady doing the songs, and Ryan and Colin, you know, going back and forth. And then they'd have the rotating chair for the fourth person. Really liked it when they brought in like celebrities, like Robin Williams did an episode, and I'm trying to think who else they brought in. But such a great show. And yeah, we filled up tapes and we'd go back and watch those. And I've caught some in reruns since then, but if I was going to go back and watch something right now, it'd probably be those that I still have, you know, out there.
Right.
I still have my VCR hooked up too. And there's some things, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if I'm just cheap or if it's just kind of sentimental value of having a tape and watching it that way, having to rewind it, that kind of a thing. Mainly my Christmas stuff, it seems, is the ones that I haven't converted over yet. But we'll get out the holiday videos, around Halloween. All the Charlie Browns, those are still on VHS. A lot of the movies and such. And I don't know if you're kind of the same way. You said you converted most of your stuff over to DVD, but I still got a stack of movies that we've collected over the years. A lot probably from Blockbuster, whenever they were still in business, and you could go in and buy the previously viewed tapes for a couple bucks for some of them, and we'd take a shot at $2, whatever it was, if it was in their clearance bin or whatever. I would take a shot. Oh, let's buy this one and check it out. If we didn't like it, well, we're only out $2. But we still have quite a few. I've gotten rid of the ones that I know I have now on DVD, but my Star Wars trilogy, the original trilogy, I don't have the original cut. Remember it was back late 90s, I think, when they came out with the special edition Star Wars movies, where they added footage and cleaned it up. Yeah. They cleaned up the original films. A lot of people were upset about that. It didn't really bother me, because time I watched, I watched Empire Strikes Back, the special edition, when it came back into the theater, and that was probably the only one that I've seen on the big screen of the original trilogy. So when those came out, I remember those being on my wish list for Christmas and stuff, and I never did get them. And I think I finally just saved up some money and bought this VHS pack of 3 tapes for the original trilogy. And I still got those. It's in a gold and black case, and it's got Vader on the cover. So I still have some of those like that. They're in a special collection I've kept, and my wife has a bunch of the Disney ones still on VHS. Some might be worth some money. I know some of those covers and such, depending on when they were produced and how they have the whole vault, the Disney vault, they only open so often.
Right.
We've kept those, so I don't know. I might need to go on eBay and hawk a few of those when she's not looking. get some spending money on the side. But anyway, that's gonna about do it for me. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to the discussion.
Well, as far not as recorded, but you were saying about bringing out having the VHS at your ready.
Yeah.
I, for the longest time, I guess it's like a routine, but a yearly routine. I would break out a VCR. I don't have it actively attached, but I would break it out, hook it up to a TV, and I'd watch the VHS Transformers, the movie from the 80s. And I actually was anticipating something when I bought the Blu-ray. I watched the Blu-ray movie DVD, and I'm watching it. And right when they introduce Unicron on the VHS, it's like there's the shadow, but it's like a foreshadow, not an outpost shadow. But it's right before Unicron actually speaks. You hear this Megatron. Then you actually hear him say Megatron, and it's like there's a shadow or something, an error on that VHS.
Did they fix it?
Yes, because you don't hear it at all. And on DVD, I'm sitting there waiting for it, and all of a sudden, it's just Megatron. I'm like, I feel so cheated. But wait, they probably cleaned it up. So
I had a VHS copy of that I bought. It was probably in the 90s from Walmart or someplace. I lent that out. It was early 2000s, I would say, when I have to be a little bit later than that, maybe like 2003 or 4 when I started at my previous job, and lent that out to one of my coworkers and never got it back. So Billy, if you're listening, I'm coming for that tape.
well,
I still have G.I. Joe the movie on VHS.
Oh, nice.
And that's usually the only time. I don't have that on DVD yet, so I do on occasion will pop that in, and me and the boys will watch it when I want to get some G.I. Joe. And I bought the whole entire animated series, Real American Hero, on DVD, but I still have the movie on VHS.
Nice.
So, well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up and try to come up with a topic for the next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to actually look up in our menu and see what we.
Well, I had a couple things kind of on my mind. Well, one we kind of hinted at in the last episode, which was kind of going through our toy box and taking a mental inventory of what we remember we had specifically, in each collection and such. I also had a thought of maybe doing what we did for this show in audio format. So in other words, what kind of mixtapes were you making back in the day? Because I still have a bunch of cassettes and some of the essentially the compilations and mixtapes that I made for myself to listen to, and I could dig some of those out and kind of go through what I was listening to at certain times and such. So I recorded a lot. I know we recorded a lot from the station when we worked there.
Oh yeah.
So we could put that on the list as well. What else do we got there? You remember anything else we were talking about?
My thing won't come up.
Let me see if I can get.
It's just taking its time
through here to see. Maybe we got some other ideas on the brain for.
Where is it? Well, we could do a WPIX, but we remember that show or that TV station.
True, that would be fun to dig up and see.
Yeah, because I now like their
that.
WPIX archives, and now they just had a thing here just recently. I think a day or two ago, they had a Fast Eddie commercial on there, and it was just classic to see him.
Crazy Eddie.
Crazy Eddie, sorry.
His prices are insane.
Yeah, that was so hilarious. And then I still remember Short Circuit 2 spoofed that.
Oh, really?
They spoofed him.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but basically that's how he remembers that he has that electronics store, and that's how he gets repaired and becomes, all suited up, has the spike. I'll call it hairdo, but it really isn't hair.
It's been a long time since I watched the second one, let alone the first one.
Right. There's so many things.
Something maybe. Yeah, I know. It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, I think the toy collection might be the one to hit, just because it's something we've been kind of itching at anyway.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm with you on there. So let's dive into the toy box next episode, and we'll go a little deeper on what we had, what we remember having as kids, and specific things. We can go into Transformers and G.I. Joe. I know we've mentioned some some things already, but I know there's still a bunch that I had, excuse me, that we can throw out there. So, okay, well, let's do that then, man.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up for this time. And one thing I did want to mention, if you enjoy listening to the show, to head over to your app, whether you use iTunes or Google Play or whatever app that is, and give us a quick star rating, or leave a small review if you want to, and help to pass along the show. And the more reviews and more ratings we get, the more kind of exposure, as how it works in like iTunes. So would appreciate if you would do that for us. And is basically as the Rediscover the 80s podcast as a whole. And encourage everybody to if that listens to Memory Jogger, if you haven't listened to some of our other episodes in there, we did a couple memory episodes. I'm going to do a new podcast coming up called the Not Top 40, which will actually play some music, and we'll going to dive into the what I would call cult music of the 80s. I want to start that podcast very soon, and not sure what the recording schedule is going to be. Maybe about once a month, but it's going to be fun. I can't wait to debut that. But if you'll leave us a rating, that would help us out a lot. And as always, if you've got any specific memories of recording movie marathons or specific TV shows as a kid, or throughout the era of the 80s and 90s, head on over to rediscoverthe80s.com and find the show notes for this show. Leave your comment, and we'll try to announce that on our next episode. So why don't you go ahead and take us out of here, man?
Well, as those credits keep rolling like a bad Western song, we want to thank all of our listeners for joining us and allowing us to shake it up, woo-hoo, in your memories. I just put a lot of things in your head. You guys are going insane. We invite your memories via the comment section on rediscoverthe80s.com, or on one of the 1.21 gigawatt social media outlets that we have as Artie 80s. Join us again as we go running down Memory Jogger.